All right, now that we understand the architecture of the enterprise network, it's time to introduce the first actual change. Before we type a single command, we need to talk about routing itself. Routing is the process of deciding where traffic should go next. When a device receives a packet that isn't meant for itself, it looks at its routing table and asks one question: what is the best next hop to reach this destination? That decision-making process is routing. Static routing is not a protocol. There are no updates being exchanged, no neighbors being formed, and no automatic changes happening. A static route is a manually defined instruction that tells the device exactly where to send traffic for a specific destination. Because networks can learn routes from multiple sources, devices need a way to decide which route to trust more. That's where administrative distance comes in. Administrative distance is a value that represents the trustworthiness of a routing source. Static routes have an administrative distance of 1, which means they are considered highly reliable, second only directly to connected routes. If a static route exists, it will almost always be preferred over a dynamically learned route unless we intentionally change that behavior. So, in a real production environment, we don't start with dynamic routing protocols right away. We start with static routing because it is simple, predictable, and fully controlled. Every route is placed intentionally. There are no surprises. Even in large enterprise networks, static routes are still used every day. They are commonly used at the network edge for default routing, for route summarization, and as a controlled mechanism before automation. Static routing never goes away. The danger of skipping this step is that you end up troubleshooting behavior that you don't actually understand. If you don't know how traffic flows manually, automation just hides the problem. That's how networks become fragile. For this episode, our goal is not scalability, not just yet. Our goal is basically visibility. We want to clearly see how traffic moves between different sites, how return paths work, and where routing decisions are being made before we automate anything just yet. This actually mirrors how real enterprise changes are done. We establish a known good baseline, we verify the behavior, and then we layer in automation later. That sums it up for this section. Now we're going to jump into Packet Tracer and actually go through these steps. And at this point, the network has IP addressing and connectivity at the underlay level, but no site knows how to reach any other site. But however, that's expected. As you guys see in the last video, we were able to make sure that there's ping connectivity from this point to this point. However, if we tried to ping like the data center or the headquarters from branch 1, it wasn't working. That reason why is because one thing that we need to understand, the first thing that we need to ensure is next hop reachability. So because static routes do not validate whether a next hop is reachable, so this step is critical. If the next hop isn't reachable, the route just ends up, it will be installed, but traffic would just be black holed, if that makes sense. So now we're just gonna start by adding static routes. Each site will receive a default route pointing towards the carrier, basically towards here. Basically any device over here would just point towards the carrier. And where it's appropriate, we'll also add a summary route pointing to null 0. And those summary routes basically help prevent routing loops, and just for the future, it basically helps with scalability. So let's just go ahead, and as you can see, these are pre-procedure commands. We'll just show, I'm going to show you guys a new command. Once we open this up, so CLI enable, and let me make this a bit bigger. Perfect. So as you can see, our ports are still up, and we have our IP address signed for this serial link right here. Now I'm gonna show you the command show IP route, and this basically just shows the different routes that are connected or that this router knows. So it has the connected and the local route. So it's connected to this serial link right here. So basically any cable connected to here, it can basically ping because it's directly connected. Now let's try to ping 20.20.2. Ping 20.20.20.2. And as you can see, that's successful. Now we're just gonna configure this real quick, and then we're gonna run that same show IP route command, and then we're gonna see the difference. And show IP route. So now you can see that this route over here, as you can see, it has an S in front of it, and it's directly connected, null zero, and it basically has this static route of any unknown traffic is gonna end up going to this destination right here, basically towards the PE router. And as you can see, this 1/0 is the administrative distance. So the lower the administrative distance, the more reliable the route is. So if traffic ends up, when it ends up looking at the routing table, if this command is basically valid for it, it's most likely going to choose that route, because the lower the administrative distance, the more it's going to prioritize that route. So as you can see, we have an S in front of here, and if we look at the table here, S means static. So that static route has been configured on this interface here. Now we're going to do the same thing for these other routers. We're going to get into branch 2, configure this. Open the CLI. Paste that. Sorry, I need to enable it first, I guess. And show IP route. So now you can see this static route has been configured over here as well. So any unknown traffic that is in this within this these three VLANs is just gonna be forwarded to this port right here on this interface. Going to end control 6 control. Okay, that has been configured. Now we're gonna hop in the headquarter router and do the same thing. So over here we have some multi-layer switches. So it's gonna be IP routing 0.0.80. So we're gonna jump in the multi-layer switch. Which one is this? This is multi-layer switch 0. So this one right here, since it's a multi-layer switch, meaning that it operates at layer 2 and layer 3 of the OSI model, we need to configure IP routing. If you don't configure IP routing, it's still gonna act as a layer 2 device, and it's not intelligent at that point. It doesn't know what to do with IP addresses or anything of the sort. So we're gonna make sure that we enable IP routing on this right here. As you can see, this is the command right here, IP routing, and we're gonna click enter and show IP route, and gateway of last resort is not set. Okay, I mean, honestly, that makes sense because we haven't configured any IP addresses or anything of the sort on this multi-layer switch. So until we do that, we're not going to see anything pop up here in the routing table. But what we can do, just to make sure that our configs have been applied, we could do show run section, what is it, section, we'll just do the show run. And when we do the show run, it's basically going to show us all the configs that we have configured. And as you can see, this show IP route, this static route has been enabled here. So once we start configuring IP addresses and whatnot on this multi-layer switch, which is going to be in future videos, when we pop up that show IP route, we're going to start seeing that over here. Now let's just configure it on the next one. Multi-layer switch 1, IP routing, perfect. IP routing, of course. Just gonna do enable config T, and then we're just gonna paste this right here. Show run, and if we go all the way to the bottom here, we can see that this has been configured over here as well. So any unknown traffic will be rerouted towards this gateway right here, towards this interface right here. Perfect, that's how we want it. Now we're gonna get in router 1 over here and make sure that we configure these as well. Open the CLI. Let me make sure I copy and paste. Okay. I don't want no errors anymore. So we're just gonna do that. Perfect. And show IP route. And as you can see, it has this static route over here that has been configured perfect as we want it. And last but not least, we're going to get into the data center router and configure. We're going to do actually 2 configurations here because we have an SVI, we have a router and a layer 3 switch. And so boom, enable, configure T, enter command per line. I wonder if that worked. What is that about? Wait, which is this? This is router 2, okay, and Z, sorry, and show IP route. So the first one was, yes, this has been statically applied, but however, did our second command go in? Let's do command Z. Okay, perfect. Yeah, that's the only one we want. And then the multi-layer switch, we're gonna come in here and apply these configs as well. Perfect. And show IP route. I'm pretty sure it's not going to pop up once again because we have no IP addresses or anything configured on this. Now we're going to do the show run. Just go all the way to the bottom. And as you can see, we have this configured here. So this basically means any unknown traffic coming from any of these different VLANs will be rerouted towards here. Now, as I promised, for each episode, we're going to have at least one rollback command that we can apply just in case anything goes wrong and we want to go to the initial state before we started configuring anything. So this time let's just take branch 2 and we're gonna apply these configs into branch 2's router. And just for the sake of showing you guys, let's do show IP route. And as you can see, these 2 routes here are configured. Now let's say we want to get rid of them. We're just gonna paste this right here. Boom. And now we're gonna do show IP route again. Show IP route, and as you can see now, those are gone. Those static routes are gone. Perfect. So at this point the network works, but it doesn't scale, and that's intentional. So this static routing gives us full visibility and control, but at the same time it becomes unmanageable as the network grows. So that limitation is exactly what will justify our next change. So when we move on in the next episode, we'll introduce VLANs. We'll actually start configuring these PCs right here, or the gateways that they live on. And segmentation will immediately expose why static routes alone isn't enough, and why enterprise networks evolve the way they do. I hope that you guys like this video, and can't wait to see you guys in the next one. We're actually going to dig deeper into VLANs, and yeah, can't wait to see you guys.